Hey there guys, it's SerAaron here, and welcome back to another one of my GIMP tutorials. In this episode I'm going to be looking at the Toolbox over here. If you haven't seen the first episode, then I advise that you go and watch that. So, yes, today I'm going to be looking at this Toolbox, and what each of these little icons does. And I'll maybe go through some of the options which are related to them. Now there are some of these which I don't use, and I'll be pointing them out. The reason that I don't use them is because when editing textures in Minecraft you really never need to use them because you're working on such a tiny scale that they're useless pretty much. But if you're doing sort of like photoshopping an actual, like 1200 by 1000 pixel photo or something like that, then these other tools can come in handy. But since I never do that, I don't actually know how to use them, so I won't go into how to use them. So let's start off with the selection tools, which is the 5 on the top bar here. There's also 3 others here, but I don't use them, so I'm not going to touch on them. So to start off, we've got the square select. Now, the square select, you simply make a square selection. Now, when you make a selection, you'll notice that you get these sort of black and white moving lines around the area that you've selected. This black and white line means that you can't paint outside of that area. So if I were to get the paintbrush here and paint over this like so, then you see it, if I hadn't had that selected, then it would have gone over the boundaries. Now that's incredibly useful because with Minecraft specifically, texturing, you're working with a small space. So say this grass texture here, this is a 32 by 32 square, and I don't want to edit anything outside of this square because then it will start affecting another texture. The next selection tool is the ellipse selection tool, or the circular select. And this is pretty much exactly the same. You draw a square, but then it selects a circle within the diameter of that square. This is very useful when making textures such as this or this and a few others. It's very, very useful for making circles, since you have very little area to work with for making circles in pixel art otherwise. This is the free select tool, which I don't use as much, but it allows you to just draw around an object, say this plate of obsidian here, and it's kind of useful. I don't use it as much. I tend more to use the fuzzy select tool, which if I click on the same bit of obsidian, it will select all the black or all like adjacent colors. So you see how it's kind of gone overboard here. That's because this part of this texture is pretty dark and it's adjacent to this massive amount of darkness, so it's sort of gone overboard. But I don't mind that so much. I forgot to mention with the ellipse tool is that it does also make ellipses, so you can make odd-shaped circles as well as perfectly round circles. Then finally, this is the select by color tool, which let's just pick a color here. Brown, why not? It will select all brown on the screen, and this can potentially cause a bit of lag because it's got to render these tiny black and white lines that actually move around the selected area. So when you zoom out, that can take a while for it to load. So I only recommend this if you're feeling lazy, because you can then deselect around an object, like so. And the way that you do that is that with the square select tool, say, you make a selection, and then maybe I want to keep this door out of this selection, so I'll press Control and then get the door out and draw another box, and it will do that. And I can do that with any of the select tools. So maybe I want to get a circle out here, so I can press Control and bam, and then maybe I want to get all the green out as well. So then I'm only working in this fairly small sort of area, as you can see. So those are the selection tools. Those are the main 5 that you'll ever use. Like I said, these aren't really that useful. This is the color select tool, which is incredibly useful when you're switching between colors a lot. So you see down here we've got our color palette, which we've got our primary color and our secondary color. And if we click on either of these, it'll open up a color palette changer. We can move this around, change it in pretty much any way we want, or we can get presets, color wheels, lots of different ways to pick your color with GIMP, which is good, because a lot of other programs only offer maybe 1 or 2 ways to choose a color. So say I've got this color and this color, and you know, see that we've got 4 different shades of red here, which I was using in a different bit of art earlier, and say I'm switching between them a lot, so I'll use the color select tool to grab those quickly. Here we have the zoom tool, which I don't use because I use the shortcut of it, which is if you have a number pad on your keyboard, it's just plus or minus, and if you don't have a number pad, then it's Control plus and Control minus. Now you may have noticed that I'm sort of moving around here like this. I probably should have mentioned this sooner, but the way that you do that is you either you really don't use that tool. That tool will move the whole image. So the way that you move around the screen is that you use the select tool, or I think it can be pretty much any tool, and you press your middle mouse button and drag across the screen. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know how sensitive my mic is today. So yes, this is the measure tool, which if we draw a line from here to here, say, it will tell us down in the bottom here how many pixels this is, and the angle and the dimensions if it were to make a box, which is kind of handy, but I don't use all that often, because if you get the select tool and make a selection also, it will tell you these things down in the bottom also, as you can see. So now we have the rotate tool, which can be used on an entire image, as you can see, or it can be used on a selection. So let's rotate this snow upside down, because I can. Now, because of the rotation programming in GIMP or something, I'm not entirely sure, it will occasionally sort of make these additional lines outside of it. The way that you can do that, it doesn't affect the image in any way, it just makes it slightly bigger, so you have to move it. back into where it belongs sometimes. And the way that I do that is with the move tool, which will move the highest layer, and I'll get onto layers at a later date. But basically, when you pick something up with like the rotate tool or any of these tools here, or copy and paste, if you paste something in or use text, then it will create a floating selection, which when you deselect it will merge back into the background. But yes, that's basically what the move tool will do. It will move the layer, not the it will move the selected layer. So then we have the scale tool. So we can make this bigger, and we can choose how big we want to make it, and we can also lock these two together, so when I increase this one will increase also. That looks terrible. Then we have the flip tool. I'm skipping these two because I don't tend to use them that much. The perspective tool will move the front two corners of your selection forwards and the back two corners backwards, or vice versa. And the shear tool will turn your image in a sort of weird way. I never use it. So say I have this diamond, say, and I click the flip tool with it, it will flip, oddly enough. Now you see here, this is the first time I'm actually going to go into some of the options, is that you have horizontal and vertical flips. So if I select the vertical flip, it will now flip vertically. And if I select the horizontal, it will do that also. And you can see here it says in brackets control. That means when you hold down control, you see it will change for you. Now it won't toggle, so you have to hold down control when you're doing it, but it's very handy. Next we've got the text tool, which when you make a selection with, it will open the GIMP text editor. You can open text documents into this, but I tend to just type, so hello YouTube, and we press close, and you'll see that it's chosen my primary color and the standard sans font. We can change the size of this, and if you make it too small then you can't see it, so let's make it massive. We can change the color of it over here, so make it sort of pinky orange, and let's change the font to let's see, yes, the Facetious Gaming font. And you'll see over here that it's made another layer, and I've deselected it now. Text is the one thing that doesn't automatically merge down into the bottom layer, which can be useful because we can then just click on this layer and we can draw underneath this. But generally I'll merge it down into the background by right clicking on this layer and clicking merge down, because PNG files can't save with layers. If you do have layers in your PNG or in your document, when you save it, it will ask if you want to merge all the layers down anyway, but I like to do things manually sometimes. Then we have the bucket fill tool, which I never really use because when you're working on such a small scale, a large paintbrush or a large pencil is usually enough to fill an area without having to use the fill tool itself. We have the blend tool, which is kind of badly named because it's actually a gradient tool. So if we make a selection here, say this glowstone, and maybe I don't like the color, maybe I want pink glowstone instead. What I can do is I could recolor this, or I could make an entirely new gradient, which is how I actually made this texture in the first place. The way it works is that you pick your two primary colors, let's say pink and sort of a violet color, because hey, why not? And we click on the shape and we make it radial. So you see how it's sort of brighter in the center and darker at the corners. The way that I made that is with this gradient tool, is I clicked in the middle and you drag it out to the corner and let go, and it makes this sort of lovely gradient pattern where the secondary color is on the outside and the primary color is on the inside. Now we can change how much this effect happens by making the radius bigger or smaller, depending on what we actually want to have happen. So we can have sort of sunspots, or we can have it mainly as this. We can also flip it, so now it's the other way around. Anyway, that's enough of that. Screw it, I'll change it later. So now we have the pencil tool and the brush tool, which you've already seen me use. And the way that the difference between these two, rather, is that the if I get these two the same size, then you see the pencil tool, when I click with it, rather, it will make well, a circle shape, and the borders will be completely opaque. So if I now select this with the color select tool, or rather the fuzzy select tool, then I can select it and it's completely separate from the transparency. This is perfect for texture, this is perfect for pixel art, because generally speaking with pixel art you don't want to blend colors too much. Now if I get the brush tool, you immediately notice the difference between the way that they move, in that the brush tool can literally move anywhere, whereas the pencil tool is more locked to each pixel. That's because, like I said, the pencil tool can't handle transparency, whereas the paintbrush tool can. So I can click here, or here, or sort of somewhere in between. And you see around the borders here, it makes this sort of opaqueness, not opaqueness, transparency. And you can change that. Oh no, wait, no you can't, sorry. You can change how opaque the brushes are, just generally, but even with full opacity in the paintbrush, it will still make these sort of slightly blurred borders around the edge, and I don't like that very much, but it can be useful in certain places. So you'll see if I try to fuzzy select this, it'll select the whole thing as well, but you'll get these areas where it doesn't quite look like there's actually anything there, but if you zoom in real close, you'll see that there actually is. Because Minecraft textures don't support like slightly transparent things, like it will support like transparency in terms of this isn't transparent, this is transparent. What it won't do is make this slightly transparent. You see how this is slightly transparent. If this goes into Minecraft, then it will just make it flat. So if we use the paintbrush tool here and then we put this into Minecraft, this pixel here would appear to be this color, even though to us it looks almost completely transparent. Wow, that took way longer to explain than I thought it would. So then we've got the erase tool, which is the same as the paintbrush tool in terms of the way that it erases. I think that's the one thing that I don't like about the erase tool, is that it will create these sort of areas of slight transparency sometimes. That can be really annoying if you don't realize that it's happened. So nowadays what I tend to do is I'll just make a selection and then hit delete, because it's a lot faster and it's a lot more effective, because you know then that everything within that area is definitely deleted. These 5 tools here I've never even touched. I know that they do things, I don't know what things specifically they do, so I'm going to ignore them. This is the blend tool, which is pretty obvious. It blends things, strangely enough. But one of the options within this is to click on sharpen, or hold control again, and it will sort of do the opposite of the blur tool. Unfortunately it's not actually that good at doing it, but it's alright. I prefer to use one of the sharpen filters, but we'll get onto those at a later date. I forgot to mention also with all of these 5 brushes, you can change the opacity in the options. You can change the scale, so we can make it tiny. You know, with the pencil especially, I pretty much always have a 1 pixel sized brush, because it's usually turns out for the best. But when we're working with the larger scale stuff, we can change the type of circle that's generated. So you see this is exactly the same size as before, but I'm choosing different circle types, and it's changing the way that the circle is actually generated. You know, so if I have this 10 sized brush here, and then I change it to this, and oh god, it's massive. So these circle types are very useful. We also have peppers. I don't know why we have peppers, but we can make peppers if we really want to. Yeah, there's a pepper brush. Don't ask. I don't know. There's also an X brush. There's a couple of other brushes, but generally speaking, I just use the circle. Yes. Anyway, so then we've got the smooth brush, the smudge brush. Although I often call it the smooth brush. And what this will do is smudge it or smooth it. The way that it's different from the blend brush is that it's A, more immediately noticeable, and B, the way that the blend brush works is that it will sort of take adjacent colours and try to match them, whereas this will literally just take whatever colour that you originally picked and sort of smear it over the others. Both are useful in their own ways. Finally, we can also change the rate of smudging, so we can take this up really high and it'll smudge like crazy, or we can take it low and it will have a similar effect to the blend brush. Anyway, finally we have the dodge and burn tool, which is probably my favourite tool, simply because it's brilliant for doing lighting. So we've got this green here and we want to make it darker, or lighter, sorry. Then we can just make it lighter. It's pretty much as simple as that, and it will work on pretty much anything. I'm just ruining my texture pack here, but it's okay. And so this is the dodge options. This makes things lighter, and we can select what range it will make lighter. So if we select midtones, which is what we had, it'll just do this. If we select highlights, it will only make the lighter parts lighter. I mean, it will still affect the midtones and the shadows, but it picks up mainly on the highlights. And the shadows option is the opposite. where mainly the shadows will get highlighted the most. That's pretty much what the dodge brush does, is that it highlights things. The burn brush, on the other hand, adds shadow to things. So we've got the shadow burn selected, so it's mainly affecting shadows, and it's making it's making the shadows even darker still. Then we can select highlights, and we can make the highlights on this much darker. Now the thing that you'll notice is that if I draw over the same area multiple times, it gets darker and darker and darker every time I do it. This can be useful, and it can also be really annoying, depending on what you're trying to do. And if you do it enough times, then yeah, you'll just make a black hole in your work. So yes, this has probably been an incredibly long video, but hopefully that's helped a lot, because the toolbox is incredibly useful. It has almost everything that you ever need when texture editing in it, and everything else that you need is either in here or in all of these ridiculous amounts of options, which by the way are also available if you left click. That whole bar just comes onto your left click. It's crazy. Anyway, so I'm going to be getting into them in the following 2 episodes. And yeah, I'll see you next time.